You're listening to the Life Friendly Business Podcast. I'm your host, Erin Thomas Wong, business mentor, author, and founder of the Cocoon VIP membership, empowering women around the world to build businesses on their terms. If you want to grow and scale a business that works in harmony with your family and your life, this podcast is for you. Today I'm speaking to Viv Allen, counsellor, coach and charity founder. Viv works with entrepreneurs and business owners to balance their passions and profits to avoid burnout and breakdown. Using her True Growth framework and one-to-one coaching program, she helps business owners get laser focused on the mindset, strategy and action they need to build a business that supports them and the lifestyle they love. In this interview, she shares her own journey of going from being a director of a multi-million-pound business to finding herself going through a divorce and becoming a single parent of 2 girls. During her recovery, she decided to retrain as a counsellor and also set up a charity to help other parents and families who were struggling. Hello, Viv. Thank you very much for joining me on the Life Friendly Business Podcast.
Hi, Erin. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me along as your guest. I'm delighted to be here and really excited.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So can you just tell us, first of all, why you started your own business in the first place?
The short answer to that is necessity. The slightly longer answer to that is sort of post-divorce, I was pretty much mullered, if I'm honest. And that meant that I didn't feel like I was, I'd moved the kids out to a rural location. I didn't have any family support. I didn't even know how I could get a job. I'd been a director of a multi-million-pound business and I found myself completely on the floor with, deskilled. And so really, I think from there, I sort of started using the skills that I could pull together. I had accountancy, so I would, to offer myself as a freelance bookkeeper. And then I sort of got into some network marketing and I was a bit of a VA. And I tried lots of different things, but mostly it was necessity to do because I needed something that I could fit in around the kids and that would also fit in with where I was in my recovery journey.
I mean, that sounds like an awful lot to deal with. And it also really resonates with a lot of the stories that I hear about women who are in really, really good jobs, really high powered careers. And then because you need to work around the kids, you're faced with, employment opportunities where you're actually a lot lower down the ranks. And that must be really hard, psychologically as well.
I think when your self-esteem is already on the floor, and then you turn up at the job centre and they're asking you to apply for work, which you left behind many years ago, decades ago, in my case. I can remember actually sitting there in tears and the lady saying to me, "Are you fit to work?" I was like, yeah, I just was caught with routine, not being able to get past the real symptoms I had of post-traumatic stress and, anxiety and depression. But underneath, knowing that I had all these skills and this fantastic, ability to be able to give so much more than some of the opportunities that were presented to me would have allowed me to do.
And how long would you say that it took you to get to the place where you felt like you were back on some kind of track, whether, it's a different track, but how long was that period of feeling really unsettled and, questioning the identity of the person that you now were as well, I imagine?
Yeah. I have to be honest and say, for me, it was years. It was too long. But mostly, I think I had a lot of pride. I was doing lots of smiling at the school gates and pretending everything was fine, and it wasn't. So I didn't have any family around me, which made it really hard. So I lost my friendship network and I'd lost my family as well because of the move. And I think that didn't help, because there weren't people close to me, to that support network. It's so important, which is what I love what you've done with the Cocoon, Erin, and in terms of building a supportive network around you. It's so important. I know it's important, which is why you do what you do, but it did take me a long time. And as part of that recovery, I trained to become a counsellor. And I think it was then that I started to really piece myself back together as me. that was really sort of the beginning of it. And I think then I can remember sitting down and going, right, don't want anyone to have to suffer like I did. And I really want to be able to help people recover faster. So I kind of at that point made a sort of my manifesto, as it were. And I decided I had 3 things I wanted to do. And one was to get into private practice, to run a coaching business I could really help people combine their skills, because that's basically what I had to do. I kind of pulled all these threads together and combined all my skills into something that then worked and fitted around me and the girls. And I wanted to found a charity to help parents and families really that were struggling from conception to age 2. So, in terms of that stuff I do with DoorPip, to help families not have to go through what we'd been through. And I wanted to write a book because ultimately I wanted to sort of pull everything together into one real self-help manual that helped people to take action where I just hadn't taken the action before. I'd done lots of realizing, and it was a gradual journey, as I'd say. I want people to sort of, if I can help them to accelerate through that bit a bit faster, then I'd love to be able to do that.
That's amazing as well, that you've been able to take your own experience and recognize how many other people there are in similar situations that need support, and that you're able to give that support to them. So your girls are grown up now, I understand, but what, I think the idea of a life-friendly business is still absolutely relevant. So, how did you manage when they were younger and you were first starting out on this new journey, and what does a kind of life-friendly business mean for you?
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with a lot of women out there who haven't quite found their balance yet. So, I thought for years that sleeping at 4 hours at night was plenty. But, I was doing a degree and a diploma and working and running the children, to school and doing everything single-handed. So that wasn't healthy. And that wasn't, I said, it took me a long time. It took me a long time to work out that I needed to prioritize me. And then be able to continue to see that there was enough time for everything. It's just everything in its time. Now, the whole business about running your own business or being self-employed, whatever scale you're at, is definitely that flexibility of being able to, even though my kids are now grown up, I can still just take a day out when I want to go and meet them, to do what we want to do. And that's so important. And when they were younger, for me, it was so valuable to be able to go to the sports days and to the choir practices and to all the matches on the weekends. And that stuff that was front and center for me. And that's what running your own business allows you to do, to say, hang on, no, my kids are more important. And that's what I'm going to go and do today.
I know that, I've spoken to quite a few single mums who are really caught between that rock and the hard place, because they're the only ones bringing in any income. So they have that huge pressure, which, means that often they're missing out on the things that are actually really important to them. And, I imagine it's quite a leap of faith, really, to make that decision. Like, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it on my own terms, and have the trust that there will be enough money to support yourselves.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that the confidence in the long game, that's the difficulty. And I think if it's having the confidence that what you're building brick by brick, action by action, is going to yield the results that you desire, and beyond that. And I think that's what entrepreneurship allows you, that perhaps a paid position doesn't.
And obviously you help people a lot with mindset. So can you give us any tips on how to get to that place of having that confidence in what you're doing?
I think doing like a lot of sort of inner work is, we talk about it all the time. People are always talking about it, but it's so valuable, because, to take that data, what you know about yourself, when you feel good, how much more you can achieve much more fastly. Is that English? much faster. You know, if you're sitting at the screen trying to extract a blog from your brain when you're not in that you're just not in that place, it's going to be really hard work and it's going to take twice as long. Whereas if you can give yourself that permission, be more compassionate and trust that you will deliver the work you need to, and then, you know, go and do something else that your brain can cope with at that moment. I think, if I answer the question there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to say as well, I think that we can be our own worst enemies with the inner critic that we have going on. And sometimes one of the most effective things you can do is just start being nicer to yourself and giving yourself grace and accepting that, you know, like sometimes things go wrong, but you had the best intentions. And, you know, I think that, especially if you've got lots of external pressures on you, you can get really bogged down with that. And then your own inner critic as well just like compounds it. So yeah, I would definitely say the inner work is, and, you know, it's interesting because you said everyone talks about it, but I feel like, you know, we do live in a bit of an echo chamber, don't we? And, you know, you and I, you know, obviously we're in the cocoon, we talk about mindset a lot, and we've probably got friends that are all of the same kind of feeling about that. But actually there are lots of people who haven't really explored their own personal development or things that they could be doing to, like you say, make things feel easier, because sometimes it feels like you're just banging your head against a brick wall. And actually, if you change your state first, you can be much more productive and much happier.
Yeah. And you know what I would say, that one of the first pieces of work I often do with clients when they come to work with me in the coaching program is actually what the olden days would have been called a time and motion study. So it's literally record what you do every day for like a week, and then just look at how you spend your time. And instantly from that, you can start to see patterns emerging. And when you can see the patterns, you know how you can manage things better. So you could learn, you could see where the inefficiencies are, and you can see, you know, how you're spreading yourself too thin, and you could just see things you can't see when you're so busy in it. So yeah, it's really valuable.
And this idea as well about, you know, wearing busy as a badge of honor. I mean, that's one reason why I, you know, decided that it was time to leave London, because I felt like there's this whole thing about, you know, oh, I'm so busy all the time, I'm doing this all the time, that's almost like a good thing. And it's not. I mean, that's what leads to burnout and stress and all those things. And I think, yeah, the time mindset that you put yourself in, because if something is really important, like, you know, if one of the kids is ill and we have to take them to the doctor, we make time to do it. Whereas, you know, we can spend so long getting caught up because we're doing stuff for other people all the time. You know, we're saying yes to other people's urgent and not looking after our own priorities.
That was the other thing I was going to say in this. So that for me was my thing. I spent a lot of time giving away my time to help other people, but wasn't thinking about where it was taking me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So,
yeah.
You know, I did all the PTA, I volunteered at the Citizens Advice. I did a lot so I made myself very busy. But then, and none of all of those experiences have been very valuable and helped me in different things. But ultimately, you have to look at your priorities. And I think that's one of those things about that, doing some real journaling and some real inner work can help you find out what is it, you know, if you want to be busy, why do you want to be busy? You know, there's nothing wrong with being busy. It just depends on, is it the busyness getting you where you want to go? And so I think that's where, you know, that inner work could be really valuable.
Or for some people is the keeping busy, avoiding stuff that's going on in their heads.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I imagine as a counsellor and as a coach that you have pretty good boundaries for yourself now. Do you have any non-negotiables?
I don't work evenings and weekends. You know, very rarely, if, you know, obviously from the mental health perspective, very occasionally a client might reach out to me over a weekend, and of course I would respond, or I might have a specific project where some really nice quiet time, when the emails aren't coming in at a million miles an hour and the phone's not going, that I might want to work on a project quietly over a weekend. But no, that my non-negotiables, I would say, I sort of take care of those evenings and weekends to be around people who love me and I love, and to do the stuff I love.
So talking about that, how do you like to take care of yourself?
You will usually find me in or near the water. So I do I'm so lucky to live here by the beach in Poole, and that is a fantastic resource which I use with my business clients as well, and but also for my own sanity. And I have a pretty solid morning and evening routine. So in that I allow time for reflection, a bit of journaling, reading something inspirational, and moving my body. So, I'd like to call it yoga, but it looks a bit more random than that, I suspect, in the mornings. And food, nutrition is like really important. So, I like to have my veggie juices, and my real treat for me is an oat cappuccino.
Don't go crazy there. Oat cappuccino. Wonderful. And so with the kind of, the life that you've been able to design now, and, a business where you're making an incredibly positive impact on lots of other people, how do you measure your success?
Wow, do you know what? How good I feel at the end of each day. That's really kind of it. There's sort of, I go to sleep, and just like my evening reflection is, did I make someone smile today? Like, did I touch their heart in some way, like make them smile or make them laugh? And I think, did I laugh or smile today? And then I think, okay, did I get shit done? Did I get the stuff done? Like, my to-do list is maximum of 3 things per day. So if I've got those 3 things done, I've done a great job.
I love that. And I love have I made someone smile today? That's brilliant. For those women out there who are listening, who are, desperately trying to build a business on their own terms, and, maybe they're caring for kids, maybe they're caring for parents, or they've got other responsibilities, and, they're finding it really hard to get any kind of work-life balance, let alone time for themselves. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give them?
Take a breath. Just breathe for a minute, and just, find a quiet space, find somewhere to sit quietly with yourself and give yourself permission to feel, to really connect with what's in your heart, because those ambitions are real. They won't go away. They might be frustrated right now because you've got other things that are a higher priority, depending on the ages and stages of your family dynamic, but they'll still be there, and you can walk. And then once you've had that quiet moment, just ask yourself, what one thing can I do today to just move that project a little bit further forward? And day by day, that's how you build a business. It's not, it's not, when we look on the internet, we could look at everybody else's sort of, big successes. Sometimes we forget all the steps that they've taken to get to that successful point. So, you're just, that taking your steps, and that's the most important thing, keeping that dream alive. And if ever you feel like you're losing connection with that, like you don't want to take it, or, realize you're procrastinating and you're not taking the steps you perhaps even could have done, then maybe just take that moment, breathe, remember why it was that you wanted to do that particular business, or set up that service, or, offer that product. And when you do connect back to that, that will reignite that fire, and you'll get going again.
I think that's really reassuring, actually, because I think that is one thing. And I know that I felt it when my kids were younger, that you have that fire in your belly, and it just feels so frustrating when you actually really want to work. You want to be working on your business, but you can't because of external, forces. And I think there is that fear of what if that fire dies out. And I think that, what you're saying is really reassuring, because it's like, it's still there within you. It just might take a bit longer. And it reminds me of the my analogy about the sweeping staircase and the lovely big landings in between. So, the idea of stepping up and scaling your business and growing your business, it's lots of small steps. And then you might get to the second floor and something happens, someone in your family becomes ill, and you can just chill out on the landing a bit. You don't have to roll back down to the ground floor. And then when you're ready, you can take it to the next floor and then the next floor. So yeah, taking the pressure off.
Yeah. And the beauty of being a business owner is you get to work out what works for you. What works for you in your life, what works for you in your business. There are 7 billion people on this planet. That means there's 7 billion different ways of being human. Just do what's right for you. Do it your way.
I love that. And I think that's the double-edged sword of social media, is that people are seeing other people who seemingly have become successful and feeling like they have to do it that way then, or they have to try and do it that way. And it doesn't necessarily work for everyone, but also it's not right for everyone. So, I have, introverts coming to me, and, and the whole thing about getting visible and stuff is absolutely terrifying to them. And it's about working out a way that you can get visible, that I do believe in stretching your comfort zone and all those kind of things, but that, some things are right for some people and some things aren't. And you have to find your own way to do things.
And I just want to circle back to something you said there, Erin, which is, I loved your choice of word. And I often hear people talk about pushing. I'm pushing myself forward. I'm pushing this. I'm pushing. But you use the word stretch. And I like the idea of stretching your comfort zone. And I think that that's a really important message for people to hear. It's not about pushing. It's not about pushing yourself to be your best. It's just that stretch. It's every time you in the morning, my part of my morning routine is I deliberately leave the tea on a very high shelf because it makes me stretch to get it. Yeah. And that's the point. It's a little bit extra effort, but I'm successful. And when you make the stretch goals achievable as well, when you're pushing yourself, there's always feels like it's a battle. It's almost like you're in a battle with yourself. So yeah, and I love that.
Yeah, definitely. And we definitely don't need to be in a battle with ourselves, because there's enough going on externally that can make us feel like we're in a battle. So let's be kind to ourselves.
For sure.
So what's coming up next for you?
Well, the book. So the charity is up and running and flying along. So I'm really excited about that. The coaching business, I've got some developments there for the next year. I want to sort of somehow launch a group program. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, but because I'm really, really loving the business performance coaching. So I want to keep that going. But ultimately, I've also got my book, which I want to launch, which is I've written and it's in editorial phase. So I'm not promising any deadlines. I keep doing that and that doesn't help. So it's going to be ready when it's ready, but it's coming out. And also I did a podcast. I don't know if you remember, I was doing a podcast, the True Growth podcast, and I took a break this year and I'm really missing it. So I'd also like to look at that. So I'm going to be taking some of my own advice shortly after this and going to sit quietly on a bench somewhere and reflect about how can I prioritize all these projects that I want to still get done, and work out which is the ones that fit best with me and where I'm at right now with all the external pressures I've got going on too. So.
And with all those different projects, especially the charity, do you have business support? Do you have people helping you?
Oh my Lord, absolutely, in every one of them. Yeah, for sure. I could not do it alone. And I mean, I even, although I have supervision for my counselling, I still have a business mentor. In the businesses, I have external support. So in the coaching business, I have virtual support, and in the charity, I have a fantastic chief of operations who does absolutely everything, all the bits I hate doing. It's fantastic. Just taken on another team member for communications. We have a whole bunch of volunteers and trustees who all support me. So yeah, definitely, you could not do this stuff alone.
Where can people find out more about you?
Oh, I'm on all the socials as Viv Allen Coaching, and I've got a website, it's vivallen.com. And I do have an ebook, Foundations for Self-Care. So it's like a little mini book before the book. And I'd be really happy to offer that to any of your listeners free of charge. So they could get a voucher code. If they just email me, then I'll make sure they get a copy of the Foundations for Self-Care. And that's the sort of 6-step guide to really building your own self-care routine. And like I was talking about, I've got a really good morning routine and an evening routine that supports me. And I wrote a little book about that. So,
lovely. I could put that in the show notes. So we'll do that.
Oh, fab.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So my last question is, if you could go back and speak to Viv when you were going through that really difficult time of, uprooting everything and, recovering from your divorce and all those things, what would you tell yourself?
I would say to be more compassionate. So be compassionate. Yes, spend more time enjoying where you are rather than, either reaching for that next step or regretting what's past. Does that make sense? So just really immerse yourself in where you are right now. What resources do you have right now that you can use today without having to get another qualification or go and invest heavily in some tech or something? What can you do right now and go from that place?
Fabulous advice. Thank you very much, Viv. It's been great to speak to you today.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. It was really wonderful. And thank you very much for having me along, Erin.
You're welcome. You've been listening to the Life Friendly Business podcast, which is all about carving your own path and doing it at your own pace. But I know that's not easy to do. So to help you decide what a life-friendly business looks like for you and help you to stick to the boundaries and commitments needed to create that, I've created the Life Friendly Business Prescription. Download this free workbook and spend 30 to 60 minutes reflecting on what life-friendly means to you and the changes you may need to make in order to achieve the work-life balance you desire. Once you've made these decisions, you can add them to your own printable life-friendly business prescription that you can put on your wall to remind yourself that you have the power to design your very own life-friendly business. Download yours now at lifefriendlybusiness.com/prescription.